What's good, YouTube fam? It's your boy Tony, aka Descendant of Chaos and Controversy, and this topic of discussion is going to be based on accountability and where I stand on certain examples that I can reference to give my standpoint on how I view accountability. To where, like, when bringing it up on certain subject matters, it gets deflected from, or the semantics come into play to, kind of like throw people off the course of sticking to the topic of discussion at hand. Okay. Now, as of late, I usually talk, I don't know, in regards to the injustices within this country, due to a lot of the structures that's established here based on a system by design, and pretty much pointing out who is responsible for that system that was put in place. And a lot of people like to throw up in my face, well, it's not the race, it's the government. And then I say, okay, well, who makes up the government? How was the government formed? Who is the representative of the government? Okay. And then I kind of like counteract those responses with the same condescending tone. I'm like, well, okay, so since we want to go there and play, aha, I got you moment. Um, when we talk about the history of this country, I'm gonna ask these questions. It's gonna be as simplified as possible. Was it African Americans that came to this country and developed the system of this country? Did they develop the social structure? Did they develop the government? Did they develop the laws and the rules of this land here in America? Here in America, not elsewhere, here in this country. Was it Asians that came over here and established the American government, the American system, the judicial system, the laws and the rules and things of that nature here in this country? Was it Hispanics that came over here and say, hey, we're going to create a system within this social construct of this identity of being Americanized and created the laws and the system? Or was it the European influence that came over here and colonized this country? Okay. Now, a lot of people dance around the subjects, especially when you give all these examples. And where my issue lies is, it's like when you look at the past with the trickle down effect that boils over into where we are today. Okay. Even before we got to this present atmosphere, when I speak on behalf of the African Americans here in this country, we were already stereotyped. We were already labeled as. We were already demonized. We were already humanized. And that came from the perception and the narrative created by none other than the white counterpart. Okay? Now, when we had to fight and prove ourselves worthy or deem ourselves as being human to be accepted in the social construct of this country, to get the approval of, I don't see how it's so hard for that understanding to be grasped, especially when you look at all the events that had taken place where all these things were put in place that excluded us. And we had to break down barriers after barriers after barriers after barriers just so where we are today, where we could be comfortable in our position to just, I don't know, settle. Whatever little crumbs that we were given, we just settled and say, yes, sir, this is good enough. Yeah, we'll take that. And then we look at each other and start like nitpicking at every little thing within our own group to either justify our comfortable status or still find some areas that need improvement. But from those who are already comfortable with the status that they are in right now, they're like, no, don't speak, especially on our behalf. We're good right where we're at. Um, when it comes to making those accountable, and this is getting to the point where I'm talking about with accountability. Now, when people say, okay, not every white person, da, 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 it's the government. Okay. But when you talk about the land, and I posted videos where, it broke down the how the wealth of this America was divided, distributed, and if you got land awarded to you, pretty much you could build an empire and profit off of that empire. Okay, um, but when it comes to accountability, yes, I agree that if you are responsible for causing damage, responsible for causing harm, responsible for being the barrier or the blockade from people obtaining any kind of success or having equal footing. And then when you finally say, okay, well, I guess we held them off long enough. I guess we can allow them to have this. I guess we can allow them to have that, but to a certain extent. And we'll only allow a few to get like to a level or a status of whatever the status pro quo. But we're not going to have a good amount of them. No, because we're always going to be here. We'll have them get to like a certain level. Because again, like I said, you don't see a lot of black people or any black people for that matter um be head of any kind of corporation, especially within the oil industry. A lot of these franchises, but we're the underlings of it. Like we're not a franchise owner of like any sports, so to speak. You don't see like major stockholders and CEOs or whatever that are of the African representative to say, hey, there's like 5 or 6 Africans to the 5 or 6 teams that are in the NFL or in the NBA or this, that, and the other. But you'll have coaches and you'll have players, right? But you don't have, yeah. When it comes to the entertainment, Michael Jackson tried to get Sony. See what happened to him. When Bill Cosby tried to get the rights to NBC. See what happened to him. But we can let a Harvey Weinstein get away with certain things, right? I'm just making the comparison just in case people want to sit there and say, well, they were found guilty of this. But on the other hand, when you talk about somebody else in comparison, crickets. Um, when it comes to, I guess for me, when I say a lot of people throw crime, this is what I'll say. I don't condone the behaviors of like people who entertain the gangster lifestyle that have that mindless, I don't know, undisciplined behavior that go out within their own community, cause chaos and havoc, um, contribute to the black on black crime, killing tons of innocents of people instead of their intended target, so to speak, for whatever gang retaliation. No, I don't approve of that. And as far as accountability goes, yes, those individuals who partake in that type of lifestyle that affects their community in a negative way, yes, there's some accountability. I shouldn't say some. Yes, there is an accountability that needs to be had and dealt with. Um, when it comes to people who go after children, but you're seeing that these pedals are getting, how should I say, their position in life to be labeled as a sickness. So it's coming to manifest in they're about to get a pass for existing and having their behaviors condoned. Um, when it comes to people who are rapists, abusers in a relationship, whether it's male or female, yes, there's an accountability for your actions. Um, when it comes to people who decide to entertain a criminal lifestyle. And when I mean criminal, I mean like if you feel like you're going to rob somebody at gunpoint, if you feel like you're going to engage in these scams to get people to think that they're doing something or work with you on a legitimate basis, but you're just working a scam on them. Yes, you should be held accountable for your actions and you should pay for them. Now, when it comes to these juvenile crimes, that ain't worth being condemned for. Just little stupid shit. Like say a jaywalking or I don't know, a traffic violation. Um that doesn't involve you being a drunk driver. Because if you drinking and driving, yes, you should be held accountable. You either should have kept your ass at the bar or took a cab home. Okay, I'm just laying out these examples of where I stand. Okay, accountability. Okay, because you could either kill yourself, kill those who are riding with you, or kill somebody that's a pedestrian or another driver in a different vehicle because you don't know how to stay in your own lane and you ran a red light or drove across the line into the other person's lane and stuff and got into a head-on collision. Yes, you should be held accountable because you shouldn't have been behind the wheel in the first place. Okay. Um, when it comes to being in key positions, like being a lawyer, law enforcement, a DA, and your bias shows when it goes to judging somebody for whatever crime that's on the document, but you're passing out a heavier sentence on this group of people, but for the same crime from another group of people, you're not as harsh on them. You're not being fair across the board. So I think when your bias comes into play, when you're in that position of power, yes, you should be accountable for your bias. Yes, I do believe that. Um, Now, I say all that to say this because it seems like whenever these topics of discussions come up, especially when it involves race, when it comes to the black community, because I'm just using this because we are the ones that are highlighted and put into the media and the public's eye and the public perception to be judged or be under the scrutiny and have the opinions formed based on whatever is presented. There is hardly anything that doesn't prevent us from being judged. We are guilty until proven innocent. And if whatever situation we find ourselves in, our record or our background is always the thing that is brought up on the forefront to try and justify whatever is done to us. But when it comes to the perpetrators, the antagonizers, the antagonists, it seems like all the excuses are made on their behalf. There's like no accountability for whatever they do that's wrong, especially in their profession. Now, if you want to go back to like talking about the foundation of this country, right or wrong, in the eyes of a certain group and amongst others that co-sign that certain group, we're demonized to be judged and criticized and be put in a situation where it's like, why do we have to fight to prove our innocence day in and day out? But everyone else, it's like, if you guilty, there's no accountability. All the excuses are made for you because of the position that you're in. And when that is brought up, it's like, you don't pour salt on an open wound. Nobody wants to talk about that, but let's just stay focused on, still holding people in the black community's foot to the fire. And it's cool when we're being generalized, but then when another group is being generalized, oh, it's a problem. Then it's called reverse racism. But what is it called when you only look at the negative in one group, but you don't see everybody else. And this is the thing that tickles me to death. Some of these black individuals, and this is where I say I'm gonna go in because I ain't giving nobody a pass. Some of these black individuals that sit there and do them co-signings and how should I say this? Kissing the asses of the people who they know don't like us as a group, as a collective. They'd rather see us stay in our lane, so to speak. Okay? What baffles me is you're cool with agreeing with them on saying, oh yeah, well look at the black on black crime. Well, if the statistics show this or the statistics show that, but where does that put you? Because you yourself is black. And they're looking at you just as the same as they're looking at the people who they're pointing at being negative. Because as I stated before on my behalf, no, I am not one that, how should I put it? Look for handouts. Everything in my life I've worked for. If I needed to ask for anything, yeah, I'll call my dad. Hey, dad, I need help with this or whatever. Boom, 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 boom. And when I get the money, I pay my dad back. Okay? That's as close as to a handout I could say I've ever gotten in my life. But for anything else, no. No. I work for mine. But then again, where I get offended is because of the generalized perception that other people have of people in the black community. They look at me as I'm part of the problem. And if they could look at me as part of the problem, and I ain't no thug out here fucking causing chaos, breaking the laws, causing somebody's life to be in jeopardy, this, that, or the other, and I'm basically a loner who sticks to himself, go to work, come home, raise my son, despite the stereotypes of what they say about black fathers and stuff like that. And that's the kicker too, because my son's mom is white. She ain't doing what she's supposed to, but I stepped up. Oh, but you'll say, you're an exception to the rule. No, 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 no. Because there are many of us within the black community who don't get that representation because people are only focused on the negative. But when we fight to stand up to represent ourselves, there are people quick to want to sit there and knock us down and say, you don't have a right to speak. You should stay quiet. Why would you speak on this or why would you speak on that? Oh, this person ain't the enemy. Why don't you look over here? That's what you want to keep us doing, looking over here. You don't want us to look at the whole broad scope of the spectrum. You just want to stay focused over here to support a one-sided narrative. Now, I'll say this. Do I feel that like every white person is to blame for some of the experiences that black people have gone through, continue to go through? Hell no, I don't. But how do you hold those accountable if people always want you to be hushed in silence? It's kind of like a person being abused, you telling them, don't speak on what this person is doing to you because of how it might make the family look. We don't want nobody judging the family. So just shh. Don't say nothing about what's being done to you in the home. Meanwhile, you got to sit there and still take the abuse. And just because other family members ain't going through what you're going through doesn't mean you're not going through it. That's the part that I don't understand. Anyway, fuck it. Y'all know what time it is. Until next time, until next video. Peace.